The car that sent Max Verstappen into the gravel at Silverstone on Sunday was the very same car he had already warned Red Bull he didn't want to race. Just one day earlier, he made it clear that racing it as it was made no sense. Looking back now, that single comment may have been the most significant thing anyone said all weekend. Because if Verstappen's concerns were justified, Red Bull didn't just throw away a podium at Silverstone. They may have given their four-time world champion the strongest reason yet to consider walking away. And here's what most of the post-race coverage is missing. The incident itself isn't the real story. The real story is what Verstappen said before the race even started, and how Red Bull responded afterward. This is F1 Verdict. I'm Ryan. Let's rewind to Saturday, because that's where everything truly began. Verstappen qualified 7th, not because he made a costly mistake, but because the car simply lacked straight-line speed. When he climbed out of the cockpit, he didn't try to put a positive spin on the result like drivers often do. Instead, he said the exact opposite. Speaking to the media after qualifying, Verstappen admitted, "There's actually no point racing like this tomorrow if we keep the car the same. I'd rather change everything." Think about what that means. This is Max Verstappen, a driver who has repeatedly carried difficult cars far beyond where they deserve to finish, standing in the paddock at one of Formula One's biggest events and saying he'd rather completely overhaul the setup and start from the pit lane than race the car in its current form. That wasn't frustration for the sake of it. It was a clear warning. And he wasn't speaking in general terms either. He specifically pointed to the power unit, Red Bull's upcoming 2026 engine package. Throughout qualifying, the car simply didn't have the straight-line speed it needed. He also explained that the balance never came together the way he wanted. In other words, he was asking the team for a complete reset. Keep that in mind, because what happened next is the part Red Bull should be paying the closest attention to. On Sunday, the car was sent out with very few changes from the version Verstappen had criticized. For a while, though, it hardly seemed to matter, because Max Verstappen has a habit of making the impossible look routine. He fought his way through the field, and as the race entered its closing stages, he had climbed into 3rd place. A podium from 7th on the grid, in a car he had openly questioned less than 24 hours earlier. You could almost imagine Red Bull's media team preparing to celebrate it as another classic Verstappen recovery drive. Then came lap 48 of 52 at Stowe, one of the fastest corners in Formula One. Without warning, the rear of the car stepped out. A sudden snap of oversteer left Verstappen with no chance to recover, sending him straight into the gravel. His race was over, the podium disappeared, the safety car was deployed, and the field was neutralized. That sequence also helped set up Charles Leclerc's first ever Silverstone victory. But that's a story for another video. Here's why that moment at Stowe is so important. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was the second time in just 8 days that the exact same thing had happened. Only a week earlier, during qualifying in Austria, Verstappen experienced an almost identical moment. The car suddenly broke away from him at high speed and fired him into the barriers. After the race at Silverstone, Verstappen explained to Sky Sports what had caused it. According to him, the rear wing wasn't closing properly. When that happens, the car loses a significant amount of downforce, making it incredibly unstable and causing it to spin off the circuit. The same issue, the same type of failure. 2 race weekends in a row. Now imagine what that feels like from inside the cockpit. Twice in the space of 8 days, the car has tried to catch him out in some of the fastest corners on the calendar. Verstappen summed it up himself. "One time, okay, but 2 times, it's becoming dangerous for myself." This is a 4-time world champion, a driver who almost never talks about safety concerns, openly admitting that he no longer fully trusts the car beneath him. That's not something you hear from Max Verstappen very often. In fact, I've watched countless Verstappen interviews, and I can't remember another time he's described his own car as something that could put his safety at risk. That makes this situation different, and it's not the kind of issue that can be solved overnight. Even before the crash, the team radio was already pointing to trouble. Several laps earlier, Verstappen had been reporting messy downshifts and saying the energy deployment didn't feel normal. As the race unfolded, he was effectively describing the car's problems in real time. So when it finally let go at Stowe and he exploded over the radio, calling the situation unbelievable, it wasn't simply frustration over one mistake or one bad corner. It was the reaction of a driver whose warnings had just been proven right in the worst possible way. And this is where the conversation becomes much bigger than what happened at Silverstone, because now the focus shifts to Verstappen's future, and the timing couldn't be more significant. Let's look at the championship standings. After Silverstone, Verstappen sits 7th in the Drivers' Championship with 76 points. George Russell is second with 154. That's a deficit of 78 points, with only a handful of races remaining before Formula One heads into the summer break. So why does that gap matter so much at this particular stage of the season? The reason this matters comes down to what's reportedly included in Verstappen's contract. Now, it's important to be clear about this. None of it has been officially confirmed by either Red Bull or Verstappen's camp. However, the reports have been widespread, and Verstappen's own manager has acknowledged that exit clauses do exist in the agreement. According to those reports, the key clause is straightforward. If Verstappen is not inside the top 2 of the Drivers' Championship by the summer break, he has the option to leave. His current contract is meant to keep him at Red Bull through the end of 2028, but that clause could provide a way out. And after Sunday's result, sitting 7th in the standings with a 78-point deficit to the top 2 and only 2 races before the summer break, that target looks out of reach. Mathematically, realistically, effectively gone. Now look at how everything connects. First, Verstappen warned the team that the car wasn't competitive enough. Then Red Bull couldn't solve the problems. Next, the car failed in a way that cost him valuable championship points. And those missing points may be exactly what reportedly activates the clause that allows him to leave. For Red Bull, it's difficult to imagine a harsher chain of events. The technical failure didn't just take away a podium finish. It may have put Verstappen's future with the team in serious doubt. And if that sounds like too big of a conclusion, consider what happened in the paddock immediately after the race. Red Bull didn't have much time to react. Within minutes of Verstappen's retirement, his father, Jos Verstappen, and his longtime manager, Raymond Vermeulen, were spotted outside the Red Bull hospitality unit, speaking with team principal Laurent Mekies. No one knows exactly what was discussed during that conversation, and I'm not going to claim otherwise. But the timing certainly stands out. The people closest to the reigning world champion were meeting with the team's leadership almost immediately after another costly mechanical issue. Then there's the McLaren situation, which is far from straightforward. McLaren CEO Zak Brown has publicly said that Verstappen's camp held discussions with McLaren. His comment at Silverstone was, "They didn't go anywhere. I've got my 2 drivers, nothing to report." But here's where things become complicated. Raymond Vermeulen has denied those discussions took place, while Verstappen himself chose not to comment. So you're left with Zak Brown saying conversations happened, Verstappen's manager dismissing the idea, and Verstappen staying completely silent. When different people involved are telling different versions of the story, it often suggests there's more happening behind the scenes than anyone wants to confirm publicly. That's how I see it. Take it as my interpretation. What isn't being debated is Laurent Mekies' own position. He made it clear that Max Verstappen wants to remain with Red Bull, but he also added one key condition that says a lot. Max needs a competitive car to be happy. That's not the kind of statement that reassures everyone everything is fine. It's an acknowledgement that Verstappen's future depends on something the team hasn't been able to provide. And Mekies did something else after the race that really stood out. He publicly apologized. His exact words were, "We had an issue with the rear wing, so it's on us. We apologize to Max." Just think about how unusual that is. Team principals usually avoid taking direct blame. They tend to talk about lessons learned, investigations, and improving for the next race. Mekies took full responsibility in front of the media. You don't make a statement like that unless you understand exactly how serious the situation has become, unless you know your driver has every reason to be frustrated and the last thing you want is to make matters even worse. So, did that apology change anything? Verstappen's own response gives us a clue. When he was asked whether he wanted to sit down and discuss everything with Red Bull's management, he answered, "To be honest, I don't want anything to do with it for a while." That doesn't sound like someone who has been reassured. It sounds like someone who, at least for the moment, has mentally stepped away from the situation. So here's the verdict. Red Bull didn't lose Max Verstappen at Silverstone, at least not yet. And it's important to be clear about that because nothing has been officially announced and no contracts have changed. But what they may have lost is the strongest argument for why he should stay. Verstappen warned the team that the car wasn't competitive enough and that he had concerns about it. They couldn't solve the problems. Then the car suffered another dangerous failure, the second one in just 8 days, and it cost him the championship points that reportedly keep his contract clause in Red Bull's favor. Everything Verstappen has said throughout this season seems to come back to one simple condition: give him a car capable of winning, and he'll stay. Silverstone was Red Bull failing that challenge in the most public and painful way possible. The warning came before the race. The failure happened for the entire world to see, and according to the reports, the exit clause may now be within reach. So let me ask you, if the car had nearly caught you out twice in 8 days, and staying loyal meant risking more of the same, would you decide to walk away? Or do you think Verstappen owes Red Bull one more season to put things right? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, because this is one of those stories where it's easy to see both sides. The next few weeks leading into the summer break could be incredibly important. That's when we'll find out whether Silverstone was simply one terrible weekend, or the moment something much bigger truly began. If you enjoy going beyond the headlines and understanding the full story behind Formula One's biggest moments, make sure to subscribe to Formula One Verdict. That's the verdict for now, and this story is far from finished.